Yeah, welcome to the Cos Underway End of Season podcast. Joined by me, Michael, Matthew, Mark, and Chris. So yeah, just getting to it a bit. Obviously, took us 6 weeks to do this because obviously we got hacked by an anonymous account. So it took about 4 weeks for us to get it back. And I think a lot of people suffered with it. Even Jamie Carragher did, didn't he? I know it's simplistic this really, but obviously I would just summarize. I'd go with you, Mark. I would just summarize the league campaign really. I know it's simplistic to say we finished 12th and you'd be delighted at start the season, but was there any like maybe disappointment we didn't get into the playoffs, or is it just your notion that 12th was a great season for me?
I think we'd have taken that all day long, wouldn't we, at the beginning of the season, I think. Um, it did sort of peter out a little bit. All eyes were sort of, and all focus was on the trophy semi-final, I think, for a bit. Um, can't fault effort or anything, really, I don't think. And, just before the trophy semi-final, not so much afterwards, but we were, down to the bare bones where we at points, we really were, and we were sort of patching people up to get them out and get them on the pitch and making sure we had bodies. But I think all of us, me included, would have taken 12th at the beginning of the season. Um, because let's be honest, without that unbelievable run just after Christmas last season before last, it sort of puts that into perspective, really, doesn't it? How good a run that was, um, to keep us up that season. But no, I was pleased all in all. I've not seen a great deal of teams that we should be afraid of. Not that we're afraid of anybody. Bobby doesn't allow that really. But I think we've always got to be realistic, haven't we? We're quite a small fish in one sense in a big pond, certainly financially. Um, However, looking at what's been done going on during the summer and the initiatives and the incentives and different bits and bobs going on, it does seem to be that the club are doing the absolute utmost to maximise every scrap of potential income that they possibly can, which is good. So no, in answer to your question, uh, Muhi, yeah, definitely, I'm well pleased.
Yeah, same with you, Matthew. Obviously, it is simplistic to say, before the start of the season, we would have took 12th, wouldn't we? Was the slight disappointment that we, as Mark says, it did peter out. So obviously we know there was reasons for that because injuries and, amount of games we had to play at the end of the season. But, how did you really summarize the league campaign?
Yeah, I'd agree with pretty much all Mark said there. I think for us to be in our second season in the National North and to be nowhere near like any sort of relegation battle, I think is a massive achievement, really. I know we obviously didn't get into the playoffs at the end, but I was never really looking that high up the table anyway. I thought we'd just consolidate ourselves 12th place, and I think that's a really solid season for us, especially with the trophy run, as you say, and all the injuries we had, and then the backlog of fixtures towards the end. It was always just like a bit of a mess towards the end. But as I say, to be solid and not looking over our shoulders at any point, I think is a massive thing for the club. And you know, in our first season, I think we came into the league a little bit in awe of some of the bigger teams, but now I don't think we are at all. You look at the likes of Hereford, for example. I know they've had a terrible season, but I think now we're looking at them sort of like on the same sort of footing as us in the league now. We're a solid National North team. Teams won't want to come to our ground. And I know we lost both games to Hereford, but still, um, I think we'll just go again next season. We always do, as Mark says. We're building on what we've already done. We're not standing still, whether that be in the transfer market or with things like the 500 club and booster budget and stuff. We're building every day and looking to get the best possible team on the pitch for next season. But as in terms of this season, I think it was a little bit up and down really. We started off well, then had the bad run of fixtures, and then sort of leveled out a little bit. Then we were obviously touching the playoffs. But as it came to about January, February, I was never really looking up there, like I say, and I was happy enough with just mid-table sort of parity, relative obscurity in the league. Just don't be anywhere near the relegation battle like our neighbours up the bypass.
Sure they'll love that comment. Um, Chris, yeah, same thing for you, really. Just yeah, how would you summarise the league campaign, really?
I mean, I suppose I started off at the start of the season saying I'll take 50 points and one goal, just stay in the league. But then as the league, as it goes on, you're thinking, well, maybe we can beat next season. And then off and on again, you're flirting with the playoffs. And there's part of you that's a little bit disappointed that we petered away at the end and didn't get there. I mean, we understand why, but it did feel at times like they were there for the taking. And then even in those games that we lost towards the end of the season, we could have easily won them with a little bit of luck. So I don't think we were in that bad a position to say, the playoffs were well out of reach, but they were a dream at the start of the season, weren't they? So overall for the season, I'm well chuffed. We beat last season, which was more than expected at the start. And we go again next season. Nothing to fear in this league. The teams that so far are getting better are the teams that had it anyway. Macclesfield are splashing money. South Shields, the teams that were splashing money last season are splashing money this season. It's going to be the same again. There's no reason we can't go out and compete with them.
Yeah, yeah. Just going to obviously we're going second part really. Obviously the trophy run. Obviously beat some like established teams in the league above. Go with you, Mark. Really. I'm still not over that decision, by the way, by the referee, but I just don't think I'll ever stop thinking about it, to be honest. But yeah, just some. Don't even get me started on refs. Yeah, just they'll summarize on the trophy run, really.
I think for me, it sort of crept up. I couldn't go to Tamworth, unfortunately, and I missed a cracker by all accounts, both in terms of obviously the result and the atmosphere. But it did seem to it was all a bit surreal. I was only thinking about it coming home from work today, actually, when we were doing this tonight. And, I know there's been some long trips recently, but I never sort of envisaged going to watch Marine in London. It was just nuts going into Euston Station and sort of pinching yourself, saying why am I here? I know some of you guys have done it on some of the crazy away trips, in the last few seasons, but um, it was amazing, And again, the teams that we beat, and even the Wealdstone game, we more than held our own. Yeah, the decision was, you know the views and the angles that we've seen were taken off mobile phones. It wasn't even like a professional camera, and even off a mobile phone, it was a penalty. It was a penalty all day long.
Yeah,
It really was. And anybody that says it wasn't is kidding themselves.
yeah,
It was a penalty. It was an absolute Stonewall penalty. And then their goal, at first at the game, I thought that's an absolute worldie. But when you actually watch it again on the highlights and see it I think there's a couple of different angles of it. Yeah, it's a good goal. It's opportunist. It's fortunate. Everything that could have gone right went right for them, and everything that went wrong for us.
yeah,
The guys hadn't missed a header all day long. Jack's positioning had been fabulous all day long, but just at the death, people are mentally and physically tired, aren't they? So it was just unfortunate. One thing, unfortunately, that I will carry with me from the semi-final was to carry on. And
yeah.
I hope no matter what we go on to achieve, that we never ever carry on like that.
No,
Both
um,
both both the fans, supporters, and the players.
yeah,
That goalkeeper got exactly what he deserved in the final. Got not one ounce of scrap of sympathy for him
yeah.
as a person or a football player. So that's one thing, unfortunately, that did leave a little bit of a sour taste.
I didn't really. I've said this. I didn't really get it because I don't think we even give them any their play stick of any sort
No,
really. So it did feel. I mean, obviously they've won and all that, but I didn't really get why the first thing they thought I was just like to give us loads. It's just a bit weird
to
to be
go
honest.
to yeah, I didn't get. I mean, emotions are high, aren't they? And who
Yeah,
knows how you would react. As a non-league footballer, you're going to play at Wembley Stadium in the cup final, and to win it like that at the death. None of us, until you're in that position, could say, how you would react. But I would hope, as I say, I hope whatever we go on to do, that we never become like that. To be honest, it happened at a few places, didn't it, this season?
yeah,
And generally, we sort of behave ourselves and give a good account of ourselves both on and off the pitch. But the trophy for me was, I think, again, that maybe in years to come with more trophy runs and stuff, maybe we'll stop becoming the team that played Tottenham. And we can sort of drop that tag, albeit, the benefits from that have been amazing. But I just hope that we go on and it's a regular occurrence that, we do get good runs in the trophy. And again, in the FA Cup again, because as you rightly say, nobody likes to come to Marine and play Marine. And even away from home, some of the performance in the cup games away from home have been absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. I suppose now that's done with the Southpaw can't really say anything now because they do mention about David Raya used to play for them at one point.
I can't say I'm not can't say anything on that because I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'm not getting drawn into that one.
But yeah, going to you, Matty. What did you think? Obviously, you've had time to reflect since the Wealdstone game, and obviously the FA Trophy one. How would you really summarise it, really?
Yeah, I had plenty of time to reflect on it on the coach home. But as Mark said there, he didn't envisage Marine playing in London. Well, the way the National North's going, Mark, you better get used to it. But no, to be honest, it was just the Wealdstone game. The old day was a special day, wasn't it? As much as we were all like devastated by the results, just everything about the day was just well amazing, other than the last minute of the game. But I think it's annoying really as well because like it's not just the goal going in that was preventable. There was about five things in the build up to it that we could have done differently that would have just ticked down the clock and got us to penalties. You know what I mean? Um, but I personally, I speak for myself. In the last few years, I've been a bit cynical towards the FA Trophy a little bit. Not sort of like valuing it as much as I potentially should because we've been going for obviously trying to survive in the league last year. I kind of pushed it to the side, and the year before that, we were going for the playoffs, the promotion, and I just sort of cast it aside a little bit. But then this season, I ended up going to every round of the trophy, and as it got further on, I just thought like we've got a chance here. Like I didn't fear any team, not in the National League or anything. Like obviously we beat Tamworth, and when we got Woking at home, I think I said someone we'll beat these. Like I wasn't thinking, oh, we're going to be camped in our box. I know we were a little bit, but they didn't really threaten us at all, did they? And
No.
we were like quite comfortable in that game. And that's just testament to Bobby and the lads, isn't it? We don't fear these sorts of teams at home. As I say, no one's going to want to come to our place with seeing the scalps we took this year, and then obviously beating Tamworth away. I know Mark described it as a cracker. I don't think I'd go that far. It was 0-0, and we were hanging on a little bit because we had about 12 fit players, and one of them was Jack. So,
Yep.
But no, the atmosphere and the day to Tamworth was absolutely amazing. And the Woking game, I didn't really see much of the second half, but the feeling after that, knowing we were, 90 minutes away from Wembley and potentially could have played Southport in the semis, I just couldn't believe we were there. It didn't feel like it was a bit like imposter syndrome, you know what I mean? Like what a Marine doing in the FA Trophy semi-final, 90 minutes away from Wembley. But no, that's really how good we were this season. Like we deserved to be there. We were there on merit. You know what I mean? We beat two National League teams, beat Curzon away. So yeah, we absolutely deserved it, and just cruel way to lose, wasn't it? But as you say, the celebrations were a little bit over the top. But at the end of the day, I can't really criticize somebody for celebrating. They probably regretted it the morning after. But in the moment, you just sort of get caught up, don't you? I know we don't do it ourselves, but that's it, isn't it? We just fell short annoyingly, but I'm sure there'll be a couple more, and we can get the duck off our back of not ever getting past the semi-finals.
I guess we've seen the worst fellow with the worst balaclava in history.
Don't get me started on him.
I
had to walk the station behind him all the way.
Yeah, just going to you, Chris. I mean, obviously when you see the final, and Wealdstone gave Southend a really good game. Is there a bit of obviously the cup one was great, but was there a little bit of regret that it might have been a winnable competition, mightn't it, in the end?
Well, that's the thing with Marina. On our day, we can compete with anyone. National League North on our day. Maybe we lack the consistency of the bigger teams over the course of a season, but on our day, we match up with anyone fine. No one scared me. So if we'd went to Wembley, I wouldn't have feared Southend, even with the 35,000 fans, whatever many they took. So I wouldn't have feared it. But is the regret? I don't know, because the trophy itself, no one expected to get to the semi-final, the final. So it was all kind of just, it just came along as just one moment after another from that last minute winner at Curzon. Then you're beating Gloucester, you're at Tamworth, you're beating Woking, and it's just it kind of all. For me, the best thing about the trophy was the days, just the crowds getting bigger and bigger at each game until we're selling out. What was it, 650 away at Wealdstone? So it was just great away days, great moments, and I do think, as I said, there's more to come with the way Bowie manages, with the record that we've got in cups, going to a big away games and getting results. I think we'll be there eventually within the next few years. I think we can target the FA Trophy. I mean, if with a bit of luck, if we go, the Buxton game in the FA Cup, if we get past that, it could have been another first round easily. That's where they went. So I said, I don't think it's a one-off. Let's put it that way. I think there's going to be more of them, because on our day we can beat anyone.
Do you think it takes more priority now, the FA Trophy, now that we're probably a mid-table National League North team now, so the cup competitions maybe not, they were in the past maybe, but now they take more priority, kind of thing?
Well, I don't know about the Senior Cup, because I'm not sure they even finished that yet.
Yeah.
So no idea about that. But yeah, the FA Cup, the earlier rounds, the FA Trophy, there's no reason why we shouldn't be, fielding our strongest teams and going for it every game. No reason at all.
Yeah.
It's seen over the years how good we can do. But I say, with us being, you're saying, we're an established mid-table team. While we are on paper, I still have that mentality that I'll take the 50 points and 1 goal every season.
Yeah. Just go on to I'll go with you, Mark. Obviously, Bobby Grant's first year in charge. He's been nominated, hasn't he? In 3 or 4 managers, manager of the year, which I don't disagree with. I'm not too sure he'll win it, but he deserves to be in it. I mean, how do you assess his first season? And he got a 2-year deal, didn't we? I think we spoke beforehand about the rumours being he was only going to get 1 year. He's got 2. He the opinion that he deserves that 2 years. 2 years, really.
Yeah, I didn't think he'd get 2. I think we spoke it on a previous podcast, just because I wasn't sure it was the Marine way previously, but I'm so glad that he's got 2. I think it just shows the faith that everybody's got in him. I have to admit, I wasn't sure at the beginning. It was a bit of a rocky start, wasn't it, at one point? And I wasn't sure because I couldn't see really what the identity was. And I think we were trying to play a way that didn't particularly suit the personnel. And also, obviously, as we all know, you start the season with a particular squad of players, and that is never what you end up with ever. Certainly, even at the level that we're now at, there's always a shakedown. Usually, sort of September-ish, middle of September, by which time you could have played six games. When you looked at the players that sort of came and went in that time, and then obviously you've got the loan market now, which is much more sort of prevalent at the level that we're at. We're always looking in the loan market, and again, we've had good experience in the loan market and not so good experience in the loan market. But with regards to Bobby in his first season, I think it's sort of quite well publicised, not publicised, but well known that me and him had a little bit of a spat at Curzon that we hugged out, and. He is exactly what it says on the tin, isn't he? I've said this before. I think I've done a couple of hospitality, and I think Chris has done one as well. And Tony always sort of says before he brings Bobby in to do his Q&A, it's parental guidance, or it can be, because some of his language is industrial, but that's what he is, because it's heart and it's feeling and it's emotion. But underneath all that as well, he's obviously him and they've got, his staff as well have got acute tactical awareness and know exactly what to do most of the time, if not all of the time, to get the best possible performance, and therefore aiming towards the best possible outcome. So nothing but praise. I did say to him on the last Saturday when we got back from the away game at Spennymoor, he was sat having a drink, and on the way out, I did say, have a good summer, and wherever you go on holiday, bring us back a centre forward. So hopefully he'll find one wherever he's been.
Yeah. Yeah, going to you, Matthew. Obviously, he's had a great first season, hasn't he, really? And he had his fair share of criticism, doesn't he? The start, well, obviously the second month and second month. I mean, how have you summarised his first year in charge? And, I'm assuming you agree with the 2-year deal that he's got to try and build something at Marine, really.
Yeah, there was a lot of skepticism like surrounding it, wasn't it, when he got the job? I mean, I personally wasn't somebody who subscribed to that necessarily, but with somebody like that coming in, you're always gonna get like not the sense of criticism, but like people a little bit on edge as you got much managerial experience. How's he gonna react to a bit of adversity and all this sort of thing? And then when the season started, obviously it started great. We won 3 out of the first 4, I think. And we were really unlucky not to get anything at South Shields. Deserved at least a point, if not more, out of that game. So I was really upbeat after the first month or so, and then the negative results came with Darlington at home, and then Radcliffe, wasn't it? And we got tonked in both of them, and then people. The thing is, when you've got like an experienced manager, people are a bit less likely to just jump straight on the back. If you've got like a CV which says, oh, they can turn it round and stuff. But I think with Grant, people didn't really have any sort of idea of how he would turn around like the negative situation or like what his sort of like philosophy was. I think people knew what it was, but weren't sure how, well we were able to sort of execute it with the players that we had, as Mark says. But now I'm really glad that him and his staff have managed to turn it around. And I said that actually before when Grant got nominated for the manager of the season. I said it's a collective effort between him, Stammers, and Paul. They ought to get a mention as well for what they did because Grant was suspended for half the season, so they had to step up at times. But yeah, now I'm really delighted that he's got the two-year deal, and he's here to stay. And you really get the sense that he wants to build on his first season and make Marine a really attractive proposition for players to join, which I think we are at the moment. Players will be looking at how well he's done in his first season of management, and I think Marine's a club that I do want to sign for, and that's what we all want, isn't it? Hopefully you can use some of his EFL contacts and get us some good loans or players in for this next season. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I'll go and see Chris. I'll just touch on that. Someone spoke to with Bobby Gant on the podcast doing with him. I think at that period, and I think there was criticism. I think some, it was justified. Some of it went a bit too far for my liking, like some of the stuff he did there. But I think it was justified because we were getting, there's 3 or 4 games where we got absolutely battered, and it felt like there was like no real. It felt like there's nothing, fighting the team. So I think it was really worrying. But I think the big thing you can say about Bobby is that, he's corrected that, all the shortcomings in them 4 or 5 games. And he's turned us into a team that, really fight and is that something you think, Chris, really going into like what he's done at Marine?
Well, yeah, it felt like at the start of the season he tried to play the way the top teams do, high line pressing up. Particularly at South Shields, we put them under so much pressure and it worked. But when you play like that consistently, opposition teams, particularly good opposition teams, they're going to find gaps in you and they're going to start picking you apart. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, that game away at Radcliffe was just terrible. It's just they just long balls straight through a hole every single time. It's like they just knew exactly where to put it. So he corrected it. We became a really solid team. I think our defensive record was, top 10 in the league easily. We were really good, solid. So now it's just a case of building on that, being more expansive. a little bit without losing that defensive solidity that we've got. I think the 2-year contract speaks for itself on both parts, on the club and Bobby. We're committing to Bobby for multiple years rather than what we always seem to do and just hedge our bets and 1-year rolling contract sort of things. 2 years, it's a statement. It's like Bobby Grant, potential manager of the season. He's our manager and he's our man taking us forward. And Bobby himself as well speaks volumes. It tells us that he wants to be at Marine as well, because he could easily have a good season, end his contract and find himself at a bigger, better club. But he's saying, no, I want the 2-year deal. I want to be here at Marine. I want to build something. I want to go places with this team. And I think that's exactly what we need. And I think we're seeing that now as we're starting to announce the retained players for the season, players who sign new contracts. It's the players that we wanted to sign new contracts. It's our best players that are committing their futures to the club. And I think that is down to Bobby Grant committing his future to the club in the way that he has. I think it's massive.
Glad you mentioned that, because that was my next question. Going on to my next question. Go with you, Mark. Obviously, as Chris mentioned there, there's players have resigned. A lot of them we expected to, but I think the two that I think I was worried about, and I'm pretty sure everyone else was worried about, was obviously Drysdale and Sinclair Smith. He's been able to sign them up, which I think is very impressive. Do you think, as Chris said, that Bobby staying was absolute key in that, really?
No, it definitely played a part, I'm sure. I mean, I think it was probably the worst kept secret that a certain club in Cheshire come in for Finn. Quite on deadline day or fast approaching anyway. So yeah, I was the same as you. There was a couple that I was really worried about. Obviously, I think we all know that Deck Drysdale in particular is one league above, probably two Football League, quite comfortable, and his influence. But some of the others have sort of really sort of gladdened my heart. Obviously, yeah. I think we all will probably agree that Adam Thomas certainly agreed something, deserved something rather. Again, spoke to Adam. I've known Adam since he was probably 8 years old. And spoke to him at the end of season awards, and he was, he couldn't obviously definitely commit because he didn't know what other offers he may or may not have, but he was more or less, yeah, I'll be here sort of thing. One that really pleased me was Sam Fielding. Still think we've got to see the best of Sam consistently, and it wasn't always down to Sam's, a lack of form or anything. I just think sometimes he was sacrificed for the shape with injuries and stuff. But I think he's a fabulous footballer. I think he's a clever footballer. I think his range of passing is really, really good. He's physically strong, so I was pleased with that one. All of them really, there's not any of them, obviously James Butler coming back at the end of the season, what a massive, massive boost that was. And I went against Hereford, I think was the first game he started. And honest to God, I've never seen anybody that's been out for that long at any level of football playing such a big game for them, a really, brutal atmosphere, and do so well. Yeah. Did not put a foot wrong. Really didn't put a foot wrong, and to do that shows the measure. So I'm really, really pleased with all of them. George Newell's had some criticism. George Newell, again, I've said this before on a previous pod, if you look at his goals to game ratio, it's up there.
Yeah.
The problem with George, and the problem that George has had in the past, is he's not been able to stay fit. Yeah. So hopefully he will stay fit. And with a couple of additions in the forward department, it will bring, even more out of George. But at times you could see he was really struggling. But, God, does he put a shift in? He does. Even when things are not going right for him, he never stops trying. Never stops putting the effort in, putting the hard yards in, defending from the front. But I'm sure that Bobby getting the 2-year contract has a massive part to play with some of them players. I mean, we've seen it, haven't we? How many times when a manager moves on and 3 or 4 players go with them?
Yeah, definitely.
Because it makes sense for all parties. They know the manager knows them. So yeah, more than pleased. And probably the one person, again, that through injuries, that is Harvey Gregson. When Harvey will be back, whether it'll be the beginning of the season, September, whatever, but what a massive boost that'll be.
Yeah,
Because again, he was somebody else that was growing into the league,
yeah,
so he'll be a welcome. He'll be more or less like a new signing.
yeah,
But as I said, I think, on Twitter or something last week, that's great. Now let's get some new races in as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously the talk was all about Finn, weren't it, Matthew? I mean, what does it say about like how well we're doing at the moment, and how much trust he has in the manager that we're able to convince him to stay? Because as Mark says, I'm pretty sure there would have been clubs like Maxfield, for instance. We know they came in from him. There would have been clubs with bigger budgets, probably bigger clubs than us after him, wouldn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a top player. No two ways about it. I think the funny thing is that the deadline day when Mac was supposed to have come in for him was, what was it, like 2 days before the Wealdstone game or something, I think. So, I think he was never going anywhere at that point. But I was worried this, like, the end of the season a little bit, that maybe they'd come back in with them, looking to probably be up there challenging for the title next year, you would imagine. And I think that's the sort of team he can play in, absolutely a playoff team, if not higher. But no, yeah, buzzing he's signed the deal, and also fielding, as Mark says, he's a top player. And you look at Sam, Whelan, and Gregson when he comes back, got three top midfield players there for the National League North. All three of them would start in a lot of teams. Really solid players on the ball, and he pop up with a few goals, admittedly. Not Whelan this year, get much value out of me flag there, but no, absolutely top players. So I'm buzzing that they've buzzing that like Finn, Newell, Drysdale as well have all signed, and I think the consistency is the thing, isn't it? Really, that's something that Youngie didn't favour too much, but since Bobby's come in, he's like, no, I want these players, and I want them to, you know, build relationships together and be playing with each other for a good few seasons. And you can't argue with that. That's a big thing in football these days, isn't it? Where you look at teams, even in the Premier League, like for example Arsenal, they haven't really changed a great deal of the team, only the players they needed to improve. But I think, yeah, if we get a good few loans in, we'll be bang in the playoff mix again. I don't see why we wouldn't be. If we were there this season with all the injuries we had, I don't see why we wouldn't be next year if we had a good summer, which we've already had. Good start to it. So I think we get a couple of fullbacks in, maybe a loan or two in the fullback positions. Obviously, we lost James Brown. Didn't feature a great deal for us last year. I think he had some injury problems as well towards the back end of the season, didn't he? But yeah, really happy with the loans we had last year. So hopefully we can get one or two of them back, and potentially kick on. But yeah, I'm really, really optimistic about next season with keeping all of the players we've kept hold of. I think that's massive for us.
Yeah, and just going on to that, Chris, what Matthew just said, obviously keeping the players, how important was that, do you feel? Because, we all know we haven't got the biggest of budget, so you don't really, these lads that we've got are good enough at this level, don't you? And then you don't really want to have like a, a big load of players coming in that you maybe won't know if they're good enough for this level, do you? So how important it was it to keep the squad that we've got?
It's vital. It's a bit unusual for me. This is what the second summer where we're going in with a lot of the same players. It's a bit unusual for us, but I think Sam Fielding, everyone's right to shout him out. I think on his day, he really gets us ticking in that midfield. His passing he's able to get the ball, keep the ball, which is something we do lack at times. I do think he's suffered from his versatility. And not just different games playing in different positions. Often he's playing 3 or 4 different positions in the same game. He's never really, because he's so good everywhere. He's never really locked down just playing that one position. And if we can do that, I think he's going to be vital for the creativity this season if we get the right players around him. Finn Sinclair-Smith, he's our star player. Keeping him is it's amazing. didn't expect us to keep him. I was resigned to him going. I thought Macclesfield or even some of the teams in the National League might have been taking a look at him as well. But he's that good. With him there, we've always got a threat. Always, he can do something magic on his own. I think that getting the 3 defenders signed up so far. Again, as I said, building on our solid defence. That's what we've got to do. We've got to keep teams out first, and then we can go ahead and get the goals. So Butler being back, he'll get his head on everything. Josh leads the team perfectly, and Deck, he's a bit faster than everyone. You can see he's half a second faster the game around him than the other players on the pitch because he's used to playing at such a higher level. So getting him signed up is massive, and I think Bobby's got a big part to play with that. But it's great start. As Matty said, the loan market's there, but there's still a few players, free agents, players maybe in a division or 2 below that are available to maybe go and get. So the future bright. I mean, we've started the summer well. We've got the 500 Club initiative, boost the budget. So today we've sold twice as many season tickets at this point of the season as we have before. So we're set up to have a good summer, get the right players in, and push on next season.
Yeah, I'll go with you, Mark, with this. I was just thinking before we came on here, to be honest, that when you think about it, we've got 4 top defenders. I'm meeting now at the club. I don't see a situation where 2 of them sit on the bench. So do you think, like, we know Dexter Arzel's gone into midfield. Do you see a situation where you could have Warden, Butler centre back, Anson right back, and Drysdale playing the defensive mid role, or do you see us playing 3 at the back? I mean, how would you see it going next season? Because as I said, I just don't see having 2 top defenders sitting on the bench for us.
Well, as we know from this season, you can't legislate for injury.
Yeah, of course,
that's one thing. But I think it's probably going to be a mix of both. If I'm being honest, I think we all saw Deck move into that sort of shielding role, which he can do absolutely no problem. Wardle and Butler, we know, can play together. We know that, that's a given. Anson, yeah, you're right, can play quite easily fullback. So there's and we said before, one of the sort of points that we raised, wasn't it, about giving the cup competition as much priority as the league. Well, if you're going to do that, then you need 4. We're still looking left back wise, aren't we? Bobby might have a thing, depending on they'll have identified people that they possibly want, either both to come in permanently or on loan. They'll know, they won't get them all, obviously, but they'll have a fair idea of who they're looking at, who's likely to be available. And it might surprise us, and it might be 3 at the back and 2, wing backs, whatever you want to call them, that sort of shape. I don't know. There'll be a method, there'll be a reasoning behind it. You don't just, they're all good players, but you've only got a certain amount in your budget. And those 4 players you're talking about, I would think are probably going to be top end of individual budgets.
Yeah.
Just because they're that good. Finn Sinclair Smith, let's be honest, he won't have signed for the same money he was on last year.
No.
Because he wouldn't be, because it's livelihoods, isn't it? You know what I mean? Even if it's a second income, it's a second income that you build your life on. So you're always going to try and maximize, whilst it's great to show loyalty and be loyal, you're always going to maximize your potential and your earnings. So, again, I think sometimes last year, weren't we? And I think I was one at one stage, go out and get another forward. Not as easy. You haven't got it. It's a finite budget, isn't it? And whilst the club is doing well financially, you look at match days and the revenue from match days. With that comes extra costs, stewarding, more bar staff, etc., etc., etc. So it's not just more people come through the door make that a commensurate amount of more money. It doesn't quite work like that. The travelling expenses must be horrific. With some of the distances that have to be travelled, obviously you've got to get better standard of coach. There's overnight stays, etc., etc., etc. So, I just I think you could say the same about midfield. We've got three or four players probably vying for the same. We've probably got five players vying for the same three positions because nobody's mentioned Matty McDonald.
No, yeah,
You know, with the club have exercised their option. So and that's what you want. I mean, as an Arsenal fan, that's where we've succeeded this year because we've managed to get at least two good, equally good players in each position, and that's what you need. And it's a bit more difficult in non-league because of cost and keeping people happy, and people who not necessarily on a contract and getting paid if you're not in the squad or whatever, whatever, whatever. But ultimately that's what you're looking at, really. I hope we get the goalkeeper situation sorted early, and I hope it's not a success. We don't go backwards and it ends up being a succession of loans. I hope
yeah,
if we get somebody, they're here. You know, um, I'm not sure what's happening with Jack McCauley. Because let's not forget Jack McCauley in his own right is a top grade goalkeeper. He was successful at Radcliffe when he played there. So he has shown a lot of patience and obviously enjoyed his position with Fraser and stuff. And he did get more games towards the end of the season, probably with Fraser being away and then the concussion injury and stuff. But so I hope we get that nailed early if possible. And then, as I say, I think we're all hankering, aren't we, after a striker? But then isn't every supporter of every club in the world
yeah,
hankering after strikers to score goals and be the glory boys?
yeah. I mean, go to you, Matthew. I mean, we obviously look very strong defensively, don't we, with the players we've signed? Obviously, midfield as well. Where do you think we do need strengthening, and do you think we will just go into the loan market for the keeper because that's traditionally what we've done for since probably Bailey Parsons, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I think I've been following Marine for 8 or 9 years now. And I think Passant is the only keeper we've had in my time here, well other than Jack, I suppose, who have been actually signed by the club. But no, as you say, we are strong defensively, absolutely. And I think I was a big fan of the sort of defensive structure that we had last year when Anson came in. You have the two centre backs and also Anson because it gives you so much height in both boxes. We scored our fair share of goals from set pieces this year and last year as well. I remember the one against South Shields, the first goal. I think Anson put it in at the back post, and it was just a barrage on their box, about 5 or 6 corners, free kicks, and just eventually we just forced it over the line. I think if you've got so much height in your team, physicality in both boxes, it can be a real plus for the team. But yeah, need some fullbacks definitely, and it remains to be seen, doesn't it, with Hubie and Potter. I'm not too sure exactly what their situation is, but hopefully they'll both be in and around the squad again next year, and potentially a couple of others who make that step up. Not sure what's going on there, but hopefully. And as you say, yeah, McDonald, definitely happy that he'll be sticking around for another season. Think he's a good player. But yeah, I'm not too sure. The goalie situation, I did hear rumours that potentially Fraser might be coming back, but I'm not sure exactly how true that is. But I think that's the club again, isn't it? If lads enjoy their loan season here, why wouldn't they want to come back? Playing men's first team football, or the alternative is under 21s, for example. Don't see why they wouldn't want to do that. But yeah, hopefully get Jolly signed up. I don't think there's been any sort of confirmation of that yet. But I'm hoping he'll be coming back, and I think we're just a bit light in a couple of areas, aren't we? So I think with the lads we've got retained and then a couple of additions, left back and a right back maybe. Um, I think we'll have a really top team next year who will all understand each other on the pitch. They formed those connections already last year, and we can look to push on towards at least the top 10, and we'll see where we get to. But yeah, really, really happy with the business we've done so far, and hopefully, we had Hunter last year, didn't we? He was sort of a luxury player, and what a player he was, absolutely amazing. But I think we've got room in the squad for maybe one of them, someone that you can pay to score your worldies like he did against Bedford. So let's see what happens. But very optimistic about the remaining weeks of the summer and the business that we might be able to do. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, the same you, Chris. Really, just obviously they've re-signed a lot of good players for us, but where's the area do you really think like we really do need to improve in the next season, really?
The answer's always up front, isn't it? We can always score more goals. I think, other than the 5-0, it was mostly we'd win by 1 or 2. We'd nick a win. We'd hang on. We'd do the business that way. So if we could get some more goals up front, that'd be perfect. I mean, I do hope Charlie Jolly comes back in. He scored a fair few for us.
Yeah.
He's a free agent. I noticed. I read Joe Ashton. He's a free agent as well. He did well for us when he came in on loan last season.
Yeah.
So if he's available, to be fair, both of the lads at left back came in and did well. Samuel Smith as well from Everton. I don't know if that's possible, but we've had players there. There was the lad who came in, was Dan Walton from Accrington. He's a free agent now. He did well for us. He's good range of passing. So there's options out there that we already know about, as well as options elsewhere. The lad Sam Burns at Lower Breck, he scored 50 goals in 2 seasons or something. Another local player. Is it worth taking a punt on him in this division? See if he can carry that form into it. So there's options out there up front. Obviously, the dream. Tranmere just released them, didn't he? So that's the dream, if that's possible, to maybe bring Sol back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're set up well. I reckon. I know Youngie and Bobby are going to have lists of players that they can bring in. Maybe we're going to play 3 at the back. Maybe that frees up Adam Thomas to play as a right wing back, get forward a bit more, and give us more versatility and give us more attacking options that way. So that's an option as well. So it wouldn't surprise you if we did play a bit of 3 at the back, particularly if you look at players we've got as well, like Sam Field, and he can slot in the back if needs be. So we've got the numbers in the squad already to do that, and the players. So it wouldn't surprise me. Goalkeeper, I hope we sign up Jack. Just let's have that permanent goalkeeper all season. Just sign him up, say you're the number 1. If for some reason it does go wrong, Youngie can always go out and get his monthly loan. So that's always an option. But I would like to see Jack get the nod as the number 1 for the season. I told him as much on the end of the season. I know he wants to, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Just next question, Mark. Really. Obviously, it's been mentioned, isn't it? Start of the season, Bobby tried to play this expansive football. It seemed to work when he changed, didn't it? To be a bit more pragmatic and play that way. And I think teams didn't like playing Marine, did they, that way? Do you expect him to stay that way, or do you think he could go back to that open football, or could it be like a hybrid in between the two? I mean, how do you see him approaching it next season?
Again, I think you just hit the nail on the head with your last statement there. Really, I think with regards similar situation to the formation at the back, I think what's been shown this year is they are tactically astute and they are able to change things. So I think it might be a hybrid of the two, dependent again. We are more than capable of holding our own, and on our best days, we've got no one to fear. But you do have to be respectful, that there are better teams in the league than us.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to adapt, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, play to your strengths. Don't be afraid of anybody, but you'd be stupid not to. You'd be stupid not to. The cleverest football managers have always done that. You know what I mean? You have to tweak your system. You have to change your formation. You have to change your tactics. So I think it might be a little bit of both. Yeah, there was games sometime, and I couldn't really, certainly around that sort of time when we sort of changed from that beginning of the season sort of formation and tactics. There was a couple of games that I couldn't see any identity. I didn't really know what it was we were good at.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that was because we'd come off, or we suffered a couple of good spankings, didn't we? Let's be honest. And also there was a bit of a change around in personnel as well, I think. So that might have played a part. But there was two, three, 4 games when I came away and didn't really know what the style was, you
Yeah,
know. I mean, but from then on, we sort of got used to the way that we were going to play, didn't we? There was still games where we tactically changed and adapted, but generally we knew how we were going to set up, even with the injuries. A few times it was a little bit square pegs and round holes, but it worked. You know, um, so yeah, I think it might be a little bit of both. It might be a little bit of, and again, as Chris said when we were talking the last question really about, what would you want to add to the squad? It's always going to be a striker, isn't it?
yeah,
If we do happen to get a striker in that is going to put the ball in the back of the net, you play to that, don't you?
yeah,
You know what I mean? So hopefully we get this. And I say every time I say this, I'm certainly that's not no personal dig or anything at George or anybody else that's played up there. But I think everybody didn't. Everybody said we need a striker. Bobby
yeah,
said it in a few of his post-match interviews. The number of balls we put that went across the front of the goal, and there was nobody dying to get in front of the last defender and just put it in. So yeah, I think it might be a little bit of both. And again, because the confidence is up, isn't it? We are, let's hope we are a well-established club at this level now.
yeah. I mean, go to you, Matthew. I mean, I'd suggest the way we played, and I don't mind going to a bit hybrid between the two, but I would suggest if Jolly does sign, that Finn and Jolly are more effective when we play on the counter attack, and instead of a team that is passing that, it's good on the ball like a Buxton or maybe a Murphy that we've seen, So I would suggest that, like, them two players are more effective when they've got space to run in behind and all that sort of stuff. I mean, how would you like them to approach it next season?
Yeah, it was high pressing football, wasn't it? I mean, you look at the South Shields game, I keep going back to it, but after that game on the coach home, I was full of praise for the way they played. I was really excited by the way they played, and unfortunately, that sort of got lost a little bit after about a month. The lines have got blurred between high pressing and just being completely open. You've got it's a fine line, isn't it? It's a balance. You've got to make the balance. And what game was it? The Radcliffe game, I think, where we went there and we got hammered, like, and the manager come out after the game and said, like, I felt disrespected by Marine the way they turned up and tried to play like that. And fair enough, they beat us 4-1, so can't really have any complaints there. But like you say, we've got to be, with Marine at the end of the day. We've got to be a team that's hard to beat, tough, compact in the shape, and look to it teams on the counter, and I'm fine with that as well. And I think it's a good way for Marine to be with the players we've got. Obviously, if we can get the ball out and up to Georgie, we can hold it up and bring the other lads into play, especially Finn and Jolly. I think you look at the game against Chorley, for example, Newell was instrumental in both the goals by doing that. And I think if we can sort of nail down our way of playing, I think we sort of saw it towards the end of the season, didn't we? Or like the middle of the season, maybe. I know we got beat a lot of times at the end of the season, but I think if we can sort of just go into every game knowing what Marine are about, the way we're going to play, who will be playing, um, as I say, the consistency is what gets you far in this league, because teams who are inconsistent will just fall off and just completely, drift towards the bottom of the table. But I'm glad that we've managed to sort of turn it around from that like negative spell we had in about September, October. And now I look at Marine and I'm fully aware of what the system is, the style of play, the players we've got. So yeah, if we can just nail it down again next year and look to build on what we've done this year, I think we'll have a really good go again.
Yeah, and I think obviously on George, I think I came for him as well. I think the club needs to bring in someone of a similar quality to him because it did feel at the end of last season that he obviously was struggling a little bit, and then but he was kind of just like getting run into the ground, weren't he, really? And he needed that little bit of a break, didn't he? So I think with the amount of games we've had, I think we touched on it, Chris, didn't you? You touched on it really, so I'll ask you again. I mean, I know you you said it, but are we an established club at this in this league now, or do we need year or two before we can go that far.
I suppose, technically on the paper, we've had two mid-table finishes. It was 15th and 12th. So we are established. The players that we're bringing in are a quality of this league. So yeah, we're not taking punts on players from lower down. So yeah, we are established, but I think for me personally, it's still National League North. It's still kind of a dream to be in it. So as I say all along, we start the season. Let's hit that 50-point mark and then see where we can go from there. I mean, who knows if we can hit the 50-point mark in January? Who knows what we can do? You know what I mean. So yes, we are established. I'm still a little bit hesitant to say to be confident of anything starting the season with anything other than let's just stay in the league. But let's as I said, stay in the league, and then who knows? Maybe we can push on for playoffs and challenge that way. I do think on the point with saying, yeah, always we need a forward. It's not necessarily just instead of George Newell. I've been saying for the second half of the season, George Newell needs a partner. He needs someone up there next to him. He does so much work winning the ball, holding up the ball, creating stuff. He just needs someone there next to him to pop it in the net. I think that changes it. I was hoping maybe that'd be Potter. Maybe he's a bit too young for that. Maybe if he's still around, he can get a chance there. But there's options there. It's not just we're not just going out and saying, "Oh, we need better players than what we've got." George Newell is a fantastic footballer. As our number 9, I love him. I'm not here saying, "Well, we need to replace George Newell" or anything like that. No, it's just we just need to add options or get a bit more up there with him to help him out. Charlie Jolly's, when he was fit, he was putting them in. He was working well with it. So there's options there. Established in the league, yes, I think technically we are. I just personally maybe don't feel it yet. I still feel like maybe this is the National League North. I've got to readjust of what Marine ceiling is.
Yeah,
I think we're all in the process of doing that. The club itself is in the process of doing that.
I think you're right about Neil, to be honest, because I think that's where I think Neil complements Finn and Jolly when they play. You don't want to bring in like an attacker, replace Neil with someone who is a bit, I don't know, doesn't have the attributes to get them into the game kind of
Maybe
thing.
scores a few more goals, but then
Yeah,
Jolly and Finn lose it. Yeah,
yeah. Go you,
so,
go you, go you, Mark. I'm going to finish up next 5-10 minutes, but obviously the budget at this level is like crazy, isn't it? I mean, until we move to the new ground, I mean, do you think we can keep punching above our weight with the budgets that we have and still do enough to stay up? Because I think someone said, I think it might have been the Southport owner said to Bobby, they were surprised that their budget was like 2.5 or twice as big as theirs, sort of as ours, sorry, and they were amazed where we were in the league kind of thing. So do you think it's sustainable to be doing what we're doing, basically, really?
I think somebody who's watched Marine over so many years have forgotten. It's always been that case, whatever league we've been in. The one thing about Marine is if they say you'll get X, you'll get X. It won't be cut once you go out of a cup competition or there's 3 or 4 weeks without a home game, so there's no income. But with regards to budget, I always take budget a little bit with a pinch of salt because I don't think any figures that are bandied around or are necessarily 100% accurate. There's no doubt that we've got a smaller budget compared to most, the vast majority of most. But there's other things that come into play, isn't there? Some players are quite happy. They want to be at a stable club. They want to be in a good environment. They want to be in an environment or in a locality that suits them personally, still at this level. There's been an awful lot of sort of fallout in the Welsh League I've seen this summer because they're being asked to play a lot of games on a Friday night, I think. And with the travelling and stuff involved in that league, players are jumping ship and going down a league to stay local.
Yeah,
There's other things that come into it. I think creativity in the loan market is key. The good thing is the one thing that pleased me this season was we managed to get players from a local club in Everton, which hasn't happened for a long, long time. And we got two absolute crackers, so we built that relationship with Everton. Dave certainly benefits both players because Odin Smith has gone back and is flying apparently by all accounts,
Yeah,
and is knocking on the door of certainly first team involvement pre-season. And Fraser has obviously now made has become a regular keeper in the under 21s now in Northern Ireland. And a couple of people from that squad have just moved up to the national team. So that'll help. Obviously, we've had some really good loan players um, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, we've had some absolute tat as well. But we've had some really good ones, especially from, the sort of Blackburns and stuff historically over the last couple of seasons. So again, if we can keep that relationship going with them, interesting to see that we're playing them pre-season, the under 21s. So what a great showcase that is to show them what Marine's all about. And a couple of them, we'd probably be looking for loan moves once the season kicks in. If we give a good account of ourselves and they see the ground and the support that's there, and that will entice them. So I think you can counteract budget a little bit with clever movement in the loan market.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And again, the other thing with big budgets come big expectations, especially from supporters
yeah,
who do think you can just go out and spend your way through any blip, any loss of form, and people then become a little bit expendable,
yeah,
and the turnover of staff, players, etc., becomes, where you can't keep up with who's coming in. The big one coming behind us, isn't it, is Berry. I'd love to know how many players they've had in over the last two seasons, you
yeah,
know,
definitely.
because they've got budget that if they hit a blip, they can just go out and buy somebody,
Yeah,
So I wouldn't. Yes, it can hamper you, and yes, we would all like more money. Of course, we would. But as I said before, the initiatives being shown by the club this summer have been amazing. They really seem to have grabbed the bull by the horns and thought, "No, come on, let's see what we can do." I
yeah,
still think I personally think there's still more income to be made on replica kits and stuff. I really do. I think they need possibly to get that a little bit better with the sizing and stuff and the availability of sizing. Um, you know, and again, that's more income. I know a few people who went to buy things and just weren't available, so that's loss of income. They seem to have got the bars and stuff sorted now, which is great. It seems a little bit easy now to be getting served in most of the bars, so that's all good. And all these things help, don't they? Gives you an increased playing budget. Certainly a lot of activity going on at the ground, during the summer and stuff.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't sort of. It's frustrating. I get it. And if you're the manager and you're playing with pennies as opposed to pounds that other people have got, it'd be frustrating. But I don't personally get hung up particularly on it.
yeah,
Bobby doesn't seem to use it as an excuse. He doesn't use a lot of things as an excuse, really. Didn't use injuries particularly as an excuse. Not really heard him hark on about budgets. It's been mentioned a couple of times, but not. It hasn't been the major focus. So, it'll be what it'll be. And as you say, the new ground, hopefully, fingers crossed, will start moving along and we'll start seeing some progress on that, this season. At least some, more updates with planning and stuff. Um, Again, you don't want to get into the Arsenal position, do you? Where your money's been sort of sidetracked towards supporting building work. I would hope that that's not going to happen because certainly don't think there's any leeway in the playing budget to be supporting anything
yeah.
on that scale.
Go to you, Matty. I mean, I think we mentioned before. You mentioned before about like being top 10 or playoffs. I mean, do, do you think it is achievable? I've just looked at it. It was 11 points between Chester and ourselves, and obviously, you know, we've discussed the reasons, haven't we? Obviously the cover on the injuries and the amount of games. I mean, do you think that's a really achievable target? Because obviously, as Mark says, Bobby doesn't really class budgets and all that. You never even really used that excuse. I mean, and we've seen like for large periods last season, didn't we, that we did really compete for the playoffs up until probably the last month, isn't it? So is that an achievable target in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, let's have it right. That gap between us and Chester only happened towards the end of the season, when we weren't playing for anything, and they just sort of motored on towards the playoffs. They didn't have a FA Trophy semi-final to contend with as well, and for large parts of the season, I'd say we were better than them. Anyway, we know we beat them at home, deservedly so, and should have beaten them away. I mean, what an absolute joke that game was. But yeah, I mean, all the talk about budget for what it is, we don't spend the budget. Like we don't spend it. There's always money left at the end of the season. That's from the horse's mouth. So I don't know. For all the talk about budget, as you say, it's one of them things, isn't it? I mean, you've got what you've got. That's why we touched on it already. Keeping the same core of players that we've got now is so important because we've never been a side who can afford to just go out and splash cash whenever we fancy. We haven't got some sort of rich backer that can just pump money into the club like a lot of these clubs do. I'm happy with where we are with what we are at the moment. As you say, that the new ground will be crucial in sort of elevating us towards a team that can really lodge a sort of like top end campaign consistently anyway. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think where we are at the moment is absolutely fine, and the initiatives and stuff that are going on, all positive. Looking likely that we'll have a more, an improved budget to work with next season at least. And if we do have another sort of injury crisis like we had this year, that we might be able to get a few more players in than what we were able to this year. But yeah, let's see what happens. I mean, for now, we're just in a perfect spot, I think, aren't we? We're sort of gearing up to lodge a playoff bid in the next couple of years, I would say. Maybe not next season, but the season after, if we can consolidate again, and just take it from there, really. But on the budget, no, it's always going to be one of them things, isn't it? Where you like some Macclesfield, South Shields, for example, and Berry coming along will always just sort of pick and choose when they want players, and Marine have just got to just exist in the same space as them, really, haven't they? And we'll do our thing, they'll do theirs, and yeah, I think we can definitely compete with these teams, no matter what the budgets are.
Yeah. And question to you, Chris. Obviously, you think you mentioned it before, but obviously season ticket holders has hit 420, I think, and it's like double what last season was. I mean, how pleased to hear that news, and because it's quite big for a club like Marine Stars to have over, normally 600, could be more this season.
Well, 600, I assume, will be the target again. But yeah, it's an incredible start. It was 420 season tickets. I think the early bird offer really helped some people commit early, which it benefits the club as well because it puts more money in the bank up front. They know they've got that money guaranteed, rather than maybe they'll in a month or two people will commit, and more and more people will buy season tickets even with the price increase that we've got now. So it's good. Hopefully, maybe we can push on to 700 or so. I think on the point of budgets as well, I think it was Neil Young in his interview said paying a player more doesn't make them a better player. If someone's going to come in along and want to go over the top and pay them more to sign them, that's fine. We'll find another target. There's plenty of good players out there. So there is players out there. I think we're in a good position in the Northwest. It's a big catchment area. There's a lot of players, a lot of ex-football league teams, football league academies, Premier League teams in that area. The players come out of. So budget-wise, we're solid. There's options. I'm not worried about not being able to get good players in because of the budget. It's just a case of going out and getting them. I think now that we're more established, maybe we'll be able to get players sooner. In the past, maybe there was players who left it till late, maybe hoping other teams come in. But I think now as you said, with the stability of 2 years, with the stability of Bobby, with the players that we signed, maybe there'll be some signings early on, a commit, and that's where the the early bird of the season ticket comes in, we've sold double the amount. We've got more money in the budget to go out and sign them early, and that's the key of it, really.
Yeah, yeah, good point. I'll go into you, Mark, with this for the last three questions, and we'll wrap up. But go to you, Mark, because I listened to the podcast between Tom William Mill, between it's about Scotland, Chris Boyd, Chris Sutton, and Gary Naismith, and they were talking about like should they regionalise, the Scottish, the lower Scottish divisions, because obviously, I mean, it got me thinking about King's Lynn, to be honest, didn't it? I mean, do you think that's something that needs to happen in the future? Because obviously, I suppose Kings Lynn fans say we travel all over the place, isn't it? But when you look at the National League North and some of the teams you go to, isn't it? It's not the North, is it? So, I mean, what would be the? I know there's not much because it's just two divisions, isn't it? And it's the 24th most northern teams at the moment. Could you see a third division coming into it and, you know, doing it that way?
I think that's the most logical answer to it. But as we all know, with anything to do with the FA, logic doesn't come into anything at all. We've seen it across all levels, all steps of football. This week where people have been put into divisions and they've either demoted themselves or they're challenging
Yeah,
the decision. And that's the way it is. Whilst there's so many teams around the sort of M25, on that orbital road in the Southern League, as you said, it's always going to be the 24 most northern that make up the Conference North. I think there is time probably for three divisions personally.
yeah,
That being said, I do enjoy going to different places. If we ended up in a northern sort of thing, we'd be playing the same teams that we played historically for quite a long time.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And whilst that's not necessarily a bad thing, I just enjoy it. Somebody who goes to quite a few away games. I like going to new places. I love going to Hereford. I didn't go last season. I only went this season, just gone, and absolutely loved it. I had a really good time, and it was great to go and see, an old league ground. But it's not for everyone, and it's expensive. You know what I mean? It makes it difficult. And again, it's added cost to the club, obviously, with transport costs and overnight stays, etc., etc. It probably does put some players off, as I said before. Having to commit to that sort of travelling distance if they're tying it in with a full time job or other occupation. But yeah, I think logically, the time is right, and that's the other competitions, the regional competitions are suffering, aren't they?
yeah,
Because people are having to travel such far distances to play league games that they're sort of putting them, they're an inconvenience and an irritation.
yeah. I think, I think,
Um,
I think the thing for me as well is like, and I'd say it's just the way it is. But when you go into like when they went to Peterborough on a Tuesday night, it just feels like this is ridiculous, isn't it? When you like got part-time players who, obviously have jobs and they're probably not going to get in till 2, 3 in the morning, and then they're up at 7 o'clock. Do you know what I mean? So I do think there's something needs to happen. I'm not too sure what, obviously a third division seems the more logical choice, isn't it? But you look at the south, it seems very congested apart from Truro, doesn't it? You take Truro out, it seems quite
yeah,
congested, doesn't it?
I mean,
Really?
it's a lot easier for them to travel to their games than it is for us to travel to ours. There's no doubt about that. As you say, that just even their ease of access to each other's grounds is a lot easier. The way they can get round, as you say, other than Truro, there's not nobody sort of perched out on their own
Yeah,
sort of thing. They're all much easier when easier travelling distances. You know, to a certain extent, once you get into the Northern Prem, they're like, you could get Blythe on a Tuesday night,
yeah, yeah,
Workington. Not quite as far, but still a hefty distance. Still not getting into the early hours. But it's more consistent. They were sort of one or twice a season, weren't they? Whereas you could end up six or seven,
yeah,
with the way things are. So yeah, I definitely think logically, maybe three divisions.
yeah. But I said logic doesn't apply to them, does it?
No,
Go you, Matty. I mean, who were your top three players last season that really impressed you?
Yeah, just touch on what Mark said there. Workington on a Tuesday night, the memories are flooding back.
Yeah,
Um,
if you can remember them.
I was only 17 at the time, so I won't get into that. But yeah, no, last season for me, obviously, I think you're looking at Finn number one. Don't think that might be a universally agreed sort of number one there. Um, I'd put Sam Fielding in there. I really would. Um, and then it's a toss-up, isn't it, between a few? I think a lot of them have got cases to be in there. You've got Anson came in, did a brilliant job for me. Drysdale, Charlie Jolly. I think I'd edge it to Jolly probably because he's an attacker and they always just seem to get more of the plaudits than the defensive teams. But yeah, our top players, we put together a really top team, didn't we? And you can't really ask for much more than that. They fight for the badge and they fight for each other, they fight for the manager, fight for the fans. So what more can you really ask for?
Yeah, last question to you, Chris. Obviously two good seasons in it. What do you feel like the expectation is next season? Is it same again really until we move into that new ground, or do you expect
Yeah,
a playoff push?
it's a bit of a mix, isn't it? There'll be some fans who expect a playoff push. There'll be some fans happy with staying in the league, and some fans just consolidating. The stadium is going to be a big factor. That is what's going to take us to the next level when that happens. So I think we don't want to overextend ourselves and get caught out and get thrown and go the other way. So for me, consolidating in the league is fantastic. If, as I said, come January, February, the playoffs are in sight, why not have a go? That's the way I see it. But let's start off, let's get to 50 points and then see where we can go from there. As Matty says, and Neil said in his interview, we don't always spend the budget. So, I said February time, if we're a few points off, there's budget there. Why not? Let's go for it. But
Yeah,
as I said, let's just start off, hit those 50 points and stay in the league. Because if we're in this league when that stadium comes, the sky's the limit.
yeah.
I think we could go far.
I'll go with this actually for a go as well. I mean, obviously, Fylde went up, then the Kidderminster went up through the playoffs. I mean, was there any surprises? Were they the two best teams you thought were in the league last season, really?
Yeah, I think I once it got to the playoffs, I thought Kidderminster would pull through. I thought it was a toss up between Fylde or South Shields, who won the league, and I thought whoever lost the league's just eventually going to lose to Kidderminster
Yeah,
because we saw when they played us, they were a good team, Kidderminster, when we went to their place. So that's what I expected for the new season. I fully expect Macclesfield to be there, Chester to be there, South Shields again. Who knows? Maybe one of those new full-time teams coming up from the lower leagues hit the ground running and can make a push as well. But I think it'll be a lot of the same faces, and then the rest of us will just be fighting for whatever points we can get underneath. And if we're in touching distance, who knows?
yeah. And same with you, Mark. Did you think like them two teams who went up? I think the bottom, the three teams. I know Alfreton made the fight of it, but Cajun kind of came out of nowhere, and then got dragged. Like always seems to happen, doesn't it? One team gets pulled from when
They
like
that was the shock to me, to be honest. That was the shock to me, Curzon, because
yeah,
last season, I was holding Curzon up as one of these well-established Conference North teams.
yeah,
Never quite sure how they did it on crowds of next to no one,
yeah,
but they did it, and I thought they were particularly good the season before last at our place. They just looked comfortable in what they were doing, where they were, and everything. So that really shocked me, Curzon. Really
yeah,
shocked me that they, but once they started to go, they went, didn't they?
yeah.
They couldn't get a point from anywhere really, apart from us.
I'll say that.
um, but as the teams going up, yeah, I think you're right. There's always a team goes into the playoffs with momentum, massive thing in it, momentum, and generally they come like a steam train, and they're the teams to watch. Not necessarily the ones that have been in the top two, three, four all season. There's normally somebody comes with a push, and once you get that momentum and that confidence of winning, um, you know. So, but I personally thought Kidderminster were really good when I seen them. I thought Fylde were good. I thought they looked comfortable and knew exactly what they were doing. Got some great players. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And again, bit of muscle memory, isn't it? Yeah, they've had their slips and they've been down and stuff, but they know where they're going. They've
Yeah.
experienced it before and more. So as a club, generally you keep the people in the background. You may not necessarily even the management and players, but other people. It is muscle memory. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, if you just mentioned about Cage, and I mean, I bet they wish they had us last day of the season because they
I know.
seem to thump us
Yeah.
every game, don't they? Apart from one time, I mean, we won 1-0, like, but was you surprised about Cajun going down? Because as Mark says, I think they was been in the league for about 10 years, is it? Something like that. I don't know how long it's been, but they seemed an established club in it. But as Mark says, they just shows you how tough this league is, and you can just get dragged down when you least expect it, really.
Well, it wasn't just the fact that Curzon beat us whenever they play us, it was that anyone was beating us at the end of the season. We didn't do them any favours. We let Hereford beat us twice and Alfreton beat us. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, we like they must have it out for us now, Curzon. I know they beat us home and away quite convincingly as well, but at the end of the season, I'm sure they were thinking, Marine need to at least take 1 point out of Hereford, and we couldn't even do that. So yeah, but no, like Mark says, last season I was sort of, I did think Curzon were up like sort of, an established national north side as well. So when they had such a poor season this year, for whatever reason, I don't know, it was surprising. I mean, they were in the National League, weren't they, when Cummins played for them, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
But
they've only been National League North, you know.
oh, have they? All right,
Yeah,
never
yeah, I
mind.
think so.
Um, but what was saying? Yeah, to see them do so bad this year, I mean, was just a real surprise, wasn't it? Like, some of the players they've got as well, not bad footballers at all. And then I guess it must just be like everything to do with like the crowds and stuff that really sort of hampered them. Probably didn't have a lot of income. Not sure what their situation is with like a backer or anything, but yeah, there's a couple of teams like that, isn't there? I mean, Alfred and Leamington. I mean, you looked at two of them two like nailed on for relegation probably. I was sort of hoping Alfred had stayed up towards the end, or one of them had stayed up because they'd be looking favourites to sort of go back down again next year. But you look next year, you don't really see any sort of whipping boys now, do you? With Hednesford coming up and Spalding's a complete unknown. Obviously, the likes of Bedford maybe would be tipped to go down their workshop, for example. But it could go anyway, couldn't it? And you could have another team like Hereford down there who've got pitch struggles, or Kings Lynn could be down there again, or it just remains to be seen, doesn't it? But as even like Chorley had a really poor season by their standards,
Yeah.
and that was another team like them and Cares, and I sort of just thought as wouldn't be in any danger of sort of going down, like they'd be solid National North teams. But as it turns out, they had a poor season, and it can happen to anyone. It really can with some mismanagement or you know various other factors. Anyone can get dragged into it. It's the National North. It's a tough league. Anyone can get dragged into it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I was quite surprised by Cajun, but after all the poverty mocking, me sympathy kind of like
Oh
went
yeah.
for them, to be honest. So yeah, I've got no some sympathy for be honest. But there we go. Yeah, just want to thank everyone for coming on. Really, thank our sponsor GW Services for doing it, sponsoring this video, and yeah, we'll have some more content coming. Thanks everyone for coming on as well. Really appreciate it as well.
Thanks for having us.
No
Cheers,
worries.
thank you.